Welcome back, everybody, to the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, an offshoot of the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B show. With your boy Matty B, joined as always with my right hand man, Mr. Kyle Quinn of 94 WIP. He's the midday show producer. Kyle, good evening, and welcome to another installment of your show. How you doing?
What's up, Matty B? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Kyle. We are at the bye week. We have arrived at the bye week, and it also happens to be around, I guess, in a 17-week or I don't know, is it 18 weeks? I don't even know how many weeks it is. 17-game season. It happens to fall on the Eagles' midway point of their season. We're going to get into some of your midpoint sort of hot takes or topics or assessments, whatever. But of course, we got to go back and take a look at the Dallas Cowboy game on Sunday. It was Dallas week. The Eagles. I know you were at the game, Kyle, so I'm going to get your take on actually what it was at the game. But 28-23 Eagles win. Again, sort of the same type of victory that the Eagles, or same type of game that the Eagles have been playing all season long. First of all, Kyle, how was the game and being there? Was it as electric as it looked?
I mean, yeah, it was, well, especially considering the way that it ended and the range of emotions that I had going from, oh my God, like, they did it, they pulled it off, they're going to beat the Cowboys, and then, oh my God, we're actually going to lose the freaking game. Like, there's no way. How is this happening to me? And it ended up with a win. We got to walk out. Everyone in Dallas sucks. I mean, that's always a great time, because the alternative is walking out, everyone's quiet, and the Cowboys fans are chirping in your face. But yeah, I mean, the last couple drives there where the Eagles sort of had those defensive stands, the building was shaking. It was insane in there. So yeah, I mean, definitely had the juice of an Eagles Cowboys game, and I mean, for a game that we built up all week, the Jalen Hurts versus Dak Prescott that we finally wanted to see. I mean, it was everything we could have possibly hoped for. I think it was the game of the NFL season so far, Matt.
Wow, that's high praise indeed. The game of the NFL. Now, you're talking about the game of the Eagles NFL season or the actual NFL season?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of a game this year where there were two better teams going at each other and it ended on with 0 seconds on the clock at the 2 yard line with a chance for one team to win or the other team to win. It was as bunch of a coin flip as you could get if you're an objective fan watching that game at the end there. I mean, it's hard for us to sort of conceptualize that because we were sitting there having heart attacks every 5 minutes, and it probably didn't feel like this magical NFL game that we're accustomed to seeing when we watch two other teams play. But if you're a fan of neither team and you're watching that game, I mean, you're like, man, that was a hell of a freaking game.
Now, you're right. And I can definitely see it from that point of view. But of course, we look at this thing from a different point of view as an Eagle fan. And I want to get kind of an overview of this question before we get into the actual breakdown of the game. Kyle, at 8-1 at the bye week, stranglehold on the NFC East. I mean, we are also almost have a stranglehold on the conference, undefeated in our own conference. Why are there not more, positive like feelings or vibes about this football team heading into the bye week at 8-1? Why? Can you answer that?
Yeah, it's because the standard that I think people have held them to is one that at this point is becoming a little bit unrealistic. Now, I totally agree with everybody who says the expectation this year should be for this team to go back to the Super Bowl and to win the Super Bowl, especially after what they did last year. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But this whole idea that the Eagles should be 8-1, beating good teams and doing it while looking pretty. I mean, there is not a combination that exists for any team really in the NFL right now. I mean, you can look at the Baltimore Ravens. They're kicking good teams' asses, but they're in the AFC. I mean, if we have to catch the Baltimore Ravens, that's going to be in the Super Bowl. Other than that, I mean, you have the Chiefs losing to the Broncos. They're not 8-1. I mean, the Lions in our own conference are 6-2. And I mean, they've lost to the Seattle Seahawks and the Baltimore Ravens, the two good teams that they played. You could look at the Niners. Well, they've just lost 3 games straight. So the bottom line is nobody in the NFL is 8-1 like the Eagles, so winning at a similar rate, beating good teams, and looking really, really good in the process. So this bar that we're comparing them against is imaginary.
Now, when you say the bar we're comparing them against, are we comparing them against the 2002 version of themselves?
You mean the 2022 version?
Yes.
I think that there's some of that, yeah, and which I understand to some degree because the expectations from that season carry over into this one. But there's no team in the NFL right now who's just like running the table and dominating everybody. So like, if you're worried about what the Eagles look like, I don't know what teams you can really point to and say, why don't the Eagles look like that? Why don't the Eagles look like that? Like, we are the standard right now. That's why it's tough for fans to sort of grasp that and be like, oh, like this is. I'm not saying everything's fine. I do think the team has some of their concerns on the secondary and the run game, but like, this is an 8-1 team. They just beat the Dolphins. They just beat the Cowboys, two pretty damn good teams. And they're not looking great doing so, but that's what happens when you play other good teams. Like, it's going to come down to the last few plays. The fact of the matter is the Eagles are on the winning side of them.
Did I say 2002? Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Did I? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty good team. I mean, they went to the NFC Championship.
Really?
All right. Okay. Obviously, I meant 22. Kyle, the rise and the fall of the Roman Empire was caused by internal strife. And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit. There's some issues on this team, and we're going to get into those, but let's get more focused on this game. I got some talking points here, Kyle, about this football game, and I want to get your opinion on them. First and foremost, Jalen Hurts. This was, as you mentioned earlier, I guess this was I don't, the modern day Brady versus Manning. I don't know. Finally, a Hurts Prescott meeting. I don't know if it's that hype, but
well, it was a legacy. I would say it was a legacy game.
Yeah, I agree with that. But Jalen comes out in this game, with that knee injury, and then the issue at the end of the half. Kyle, I honestly thought at the end of the half when he got rolled over that we're going to see Marcus Mariota in the second half of this football game. Jalen Hurts finished the game, finished it strong, did the best he could, which again, I'll take that version of Jalen Hurts over a lot of other quarterbacks' great versions because Jalen Hurts is that good. But Kyle, let's talk about the injury real quick. Obviously, the bye is here, and that's perfect timing for Jalen Hurts and a lot of other Philadelphia Eagles. But are you concerned moving forward about that knee and about the potential ramifications that might have as we continue through this gauntlet of the schedule?
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's not at a point where it's looking like it's healed and he's not like, so the whole thing about the knee is, and you can say what you want about it, but he's been playing really well, and he's moving around in the pocket. Like, it's not hindering him from moving. Like, he's not a statue back there. He's still like creating space for himself and making plays down the field. Granted, he's had to play more from the pocket because I don't think he trusts the knee or his leg to run the ball as much as he has because, like, I mean, look, we saw Micah Parsons land on it and he came up gimpy. So I think he's a little hesitant to do that. Now, if in 2 weeks' time after the bye week, and we see that it's still like that, then yeah, that's a little bit of a concern because it's very clear that this offense is lacking that running element to it and that threat that Jalen Hurts provides because it's sort of holding back DeAndre Swift and the rest of the run game from really being its full self. So if this Eagles team is going to go on a really deep run, then the knee is absolutely something that's going to have to get better. And if we don't see it get better after the bye week, then yeah, I mean, I don't really see any other path for it to start healing. If it's not going to heal with rest, then it's definitely not going to heal with him going out there and playing on it all the time. So hopefully it's not something that we just have to be resigned to dealing with. And it's a lesser version of Jalen Hurts. And when I say lesser version, I don't mean a bad version of Jalen Hurts, but not one that, is I think like the MVP version or the one that you can fully rely on to add every element of his game to the offense. So definitely going to be something we have to watch out for.
On the day, Hurts was 17 for 23, 207 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and no turnovers, which I think is the biggest stat for me. On the other side there, Dak Prescott, 29 for 44, 374 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Kyle, let's talk a little bit about Dak. Everyone has their opinion about him. I have my opinion about him. He's a Cowboy and blah, blah, blah. He's a pretty damn good quarterback in his own right. There was moments in this game, Kyle, where I thought he was on the verge of pretty much taking it over and pushing the Cowboys, but the Cowboys cowboyed it up, and obviously the Eagles were able to kind of keep them within sight and then eventually pass them. Give me your overall assessment of Dak's performance on Sunday.
Yeah, well, Dak did pretty good as he usually does against the Eagles. He exploits weaknesses in your secondary if there are some, and there were definitely some. On Sunday, and CeeDee Lamb's a really good player. I think Reed Blankenship was having a tough time covering him. I'm not sure if it was entirely Desai's plan to have Blankenship on him for as much as he did. I think that was probably should have been more of Darius Slay's responsibility. But the secondary was getting beat up a little bit. Now, to their credit, They only allowed, I think it was 6 points to the Cowboys in the second half, and they came up huge on multiple drives to end the game there with getting sacks, forcing the Cowboys to turn over on downs when that tight end was short of the goal line, pushing Dak out of bounds to make it, so that they couldn't get the 2-point conversion. So it wasn't a 3-point game, because we all know what would have happened if it were only a 3-point game with the way that they were ushered down the field on that final drive. But the defense did step up. Now, that's not to say that everything's fine in the secondary, but I think people were giving them a little bit too much business after what the Cowboys did to them this week. I think they were actually pretty opportunistic, and they made big plays when it counted.
Let's talk now about, you kind of alluded to it, Len. Let's address the elephant in the room, and that is that Eagles secondary. I disagree with your assessment of Dak Prescott kind of made things look worse than they maybe are. We got Sam Howell going for 370 and 360 in 2 games against the Eagles this year. You got Dak going for 374. A couple other quarterbacks carved the birds up pretty good as well. I believe that there's more problems there that meets the eye, Kyle. And going right at the first CeeDee Lamb assessment, what the heck? Why wasn't Darius Slay? Why was Sidney Brown? And why was Reed Blankenship given primary responsibilities for WR1 of the Dallas Cowboys and not big play Slay?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what it exactly came down to. Obviously, it could have been one of two things, or both of two things. I mean, Desai thinking that he might have had Darius Slay with a better matchup somewhere else, or he thought he might have been able to get away with it. I'm not sure, but you can also give the Cowboys a little bit of credit for possibly scheming up a plan where he's going in motion or something, and they get out of a matchup with him and Darius Slay. I don't really exactly know what went into the whole scheme thing. Now, to your point about Sam Howell throwing all over us, other quarterbacks throwing all over us and stuff like that, I know the secondary is like 26 or something in total passing yards allowed per game, which seems like a bad number, but you also have to understand that they're the number one rush defense in the NFL. And what teams do that can't run the football on you, you know what they do, Matt? They throw the football on you. That's why Dak Prescott's throwing it 54 times. So when you throw it a bunch of times, that's all you can do to move the ball on the defense. I mean, yeah, they're gonna give up a lot of yards in the game. Their yards per attempt given up, however, is, I believe, top half in the league. So definitely not nearly as bad as their passing yards given up per game. I think that's a little bit of a product of how good their rush defense has been, as opposed to just how bad their secondary is.
Well, we'll see when Pat Mahomes has a shot at 378 yards, or having to throw the ball X amount of times more because of the rush attack.
You've seen Patrick Mahomes' numbers over the past, he's not, their offense is not very good. Kansas City. This is not your father's Kansas City Chiefs offense.
No, it's not, and we'll see how that. Obviously, that's the topic for next week, so we're going to kind of stick here with the Cowboys. But you're right; it's a year-to-year league. I get it, week-to-week league. Actually, Kyle, let's transition now to the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line really had a shaky first half, all of them really. And when you look at the Eagle offensive line, and if you looked at the Eagles offensive line for the last few years, I mean, I'm talking maybe 10 years. It's really been a model of consistency. You got 2 future Hall of Famers that are currently on that offensive line, Stoutland, you, and all that. They had a bad second half. They rebounded pretty nicely. Bad first half. They rebounded very nicely in the second half. Before I ask your opinion about their overall play in this game, Kyle, I have not been impressed with the Eagle offensive line this season. Again, is this another one of those bar being set too high type things, or is there some concern along the Eagle offensive line for the season? Let's talk that first.
Yeah, I don't think there's concern with how they're playing this season. I think the only concern that we could have with the offensive line is the amount of depth that they have. And I mean, I know Cam Jurgens is coming back, but if Lane Johnson goes down, then it's Jack Driscoll going in. We don't like that. And I mean, it's not it's a thinner offensive line than I think they've had in years past. But in terms of how they're playing, I mean, they're not. Jalen Hurts is getting sacked all over the place. I think he's had plenty of time to throw the ball down the field, and the passing offense. You've seen the numbers. What him and AJ Brown have been able to do to defense. So they're giving them plenty of time. I guess you can point to the run game being not as great. I don't think that has much to do with the guys that are there. I think that's, I'm not going to say Cam Jurgens is the key to the Eagles' run game. I think it has a little bit to do with him going down and the fact that Jalen Hurts hasn't really been the same threat that he's been in years past. So I think a few different things go into the run game, but I'm not necessarily concerned with the play of the offensive line.
Just for the record, Hurts was sacked 3 times for 24 yards. Eagle offensive line. I can't really say the offensive line has done this, but the Eagles have given up 22 sacks for 121 yards so far this season. That's about 2.5 sacks a game and 13.4 yards a game. Obviously, numbers that you can live with. Absolutely. At this point of the season, I can live with those numbers.
The Cowboys
Yeah.
have
So,
a very good defensive line.
yeah, they do have a very good defensive line. Kyle, again, sticking with the offensive line mantra, and you mentioned this already, the run game continues to be a part of the Eagle offense that is really frustrating a lot of fans. It seems to have Seth Joyner really at a point where he's about to lose his mind, and then apparently has Howard Eskins at a point where he's just kind of picking at the open wound. Kyle, first, I don't think I've ever really asked you this question, and I know you were pro Bijan draft pick in the offseason. What is your take on the modern day NFL mantra that a good run game is not really necessarily needed in a pass heavy offense? Are you pro running game or anti running game, Kyle Quinn?
I'm pro running game, Matt, and I think you'd be proud of me for saying that. I know you're an old school
Good
guy.
boy.
I think teams need to be able to run the ball. Like, look, I'll give you an example. It was just this past week against the Cowboys. The Eagles couldn't ice the game at the end. They needed one first down. They were able to run the ball time to get the first down. Then they're icing the Cowboys. Dak doesn't get a chance to get driven down the field by penalties, whatever you want to have it. I mean, their inability to ice games and like really have a consistent run game. I think that's been a big difference from this season to last year. Is that last year they were able to close games out just by long drives. Now they did it against Tampa Bay this year. Really nice long 9-minute drive to close out the game, but really they haven't done it since. So the run game absolutely needs to be better. I think people have gone a little bit too overboard with the value of an NFL running back or a good NFL run game. Because the NFL is kind of cyclical, and now the teams are kind of letting you go down the field on them and just not wanting to give up the big play. That means it's time to run the football. So I think the Eagles sort of had the right idea. Now they're just not really able to execute it very well because I don't think the running back room is strong enough.
So, and you mentioned I think a lot of people get confused around the value of a good running back versus the value of a good running game. They're two totally different things in my mind. You don't necessarily have to break the bank on a Christian McCaffrey, a Saquon Barkley, or even maybe, I guess, to a lesser extent, Bijan Robinson, because it's true. These guys are getting a lot of mileage in a very short period of time. And by about 5 years of their career, they are not the same guy. And I get that. But the value of a good running game is different than having the value of a good running back. And you can have a good running game with the running back by committee type situation. With the Eagles, I think they do. I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to become somewhat of a doubter that they do have a competent room with the exception of DeAndre Swift, because players don't seem to be getting that opportunity to sustain themselves unless your name is Kenny Gainwell, who, by the way, had a bounce back game, in my opinion. I got to give him credit for that. Really nifty touchdown run in this game. But you got to look at this thing a little bit, in my opinion, going forward, Kyle, is that we're getting into this stretch of season. As you said, there's going to be more than one situation that comes up between now and the end of the season that the Eagles are going to need to ice the ball on a long drive. And right now, are they not committed to doing it, or is it something they don't trust doing it? What do you think it is?
Well, I think it's kind of two things. I really think a lot of it has to do with Jalen Hurts. I think, one, the organization Sirianni admitted as much that they were trying to, sort of keep Hurts a little bit safer as he runs the ball and takes off and stuff. And now I think Jalen Hurts with the injury a little bit, it's really hurting things. I mean, the threat of him without the threat of him running, defenses can kind of just key in. And while I think DeAndre Swift is a good player, the added element or the extra second where the linebacker has to hold up and wait to see if Jalen Hurts is going to take it, I mean, that's an extra yard or two for DeAndre Swift to take. And I think it's hurt us a lot. So, I mean, I really think it's all down to Jalen Hurts and how healthy he is, and if he's going to really be a threat in the run game, because without it, I think we're going to be in a little bit of trouble there.
Yeah, and the fact that the GM did not address it at the trade deadline, which, again, that'll be something I'll use for later on down the line. But penalties, Kyle, 10 for 98. That's bad. I'm not gonna let's not sugarcoat that. That was really, really bad. And after coming off of a clean game the week prior against the Commanders, where they didn't commit any, they commit 10. Now on the season, Kyle, 47 penalties for 390 yards. It totals out to about 5.5 penalties a game for 43 yards. I am not happy with those numbers, Kyle. Those to me are a little too much to deal with right now. Again, going forward, we all saw how it affected this game, kept drives alive, and there were some of the, again, weird penalties and whatnot. But going forward, Kyle, how much does that concern you, that this team seems to be a Jekyll and Hyde week to week when it comes to discipline on the football field?
I mean, it's something they're going to have to iron out during the bye week. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how anybody could be totally happy with those numbers. I will say, the one penalty that we haven't seen them get that under the Nick Sirianni era was like a staple is the ineligible man downfield. I haven't seen those this year. Now it's just
No.
personal fouls and stuff like that. So hopefully that sort of rounds itself out. I think some of it might have to do with I think you're seeing guys like Jalen Carter have some pretty boneheaded rookie mistake penalties. You'll see some of that. And Bradbury, frankly, I mean, seems to have lost a step big time because all he does back there is hold people and pass interference and legal contact. I mean, my goodness. So that's definitely something I'm going to be on the lookout for. But I mean, if there's any time for them to iron it out, it's during the bye week.
And then the last thing let's talk about, Kyle, is turnovers. The Eagles did force a turnover now. They did force a turnover this week, which is good. They've now forced 11, and it's 1.5 a game. All in all, a 28-23 victory. Kyle Quinn, they put a stranglehold on the NFC East right now. They're, 3 games ahead of them in the win column now? And undefeated in the conference. Kyle, sitting at 8-1 at the bye week in the position that they're in, heading up against, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, and Seattle still remaining amongst other teams. It's got to make you feel good, Kyle Quinn. But what do you tell that naysayer out there, that Eagle fan that just is desperately waiting for that other shoe to drop? I don't know, the guy that's been through a lot of years of watching this team kind of dangle a carrot in front of him, but then at the end of the day, it's somehow it goes away. What do you tell to those types of fans out there?
Well, so I mean, anyone who's bracing for a tough stretch over these next 5 games, I would just tell them, yeah, what do you think is going to happen? This is maybe the most brutal stretch for any team any team's going to face this year in the NFL, and it's about it's 6 games total, but the next 5 games in a row for us. Now, it's not going to be easy, and they're probably going to drop a couple games. I mean, God forbid they drop 3 or 4 or something, but they're going to lose a couple of these games, and I think people should just sort of brace for that. Now, here's the other thing I will say, because I do find it funny because a lot of people talk out of both sides of their mouth when it comes to last season's team and this season's team. And last year, how we were just whipping up on everybody, and everyone's like, oh, they're not facing any good competition. They're not battle tested, not facing any adversity. Well, what are we getting right now? We're getting adversity. We're getting battle tested. We're winning close games. We're not front running. You know what I mean? So I don't know what people want from this team. They're going to go through a tough stretch here, and I think that's going to make this team better when they get into the postseason. They're going to have played all of these teams, right? I mean, who else can say that? So they're going to have experience playing really tough football teams, really tough football games, and you should be happy that they have the cushion that they have going into the stretch.
Yeah, and I want to retort that, because some Eagle fans might say, well, last year they really didn't play any quality opponents until the Super Bowl, and they whooped up on teams until they faced their first elite team, and then they got beat. And then I would say this year, yet they've played better quality of teams. Let's face it, they've only played really 2 that have maybe Super Bowl aspirations of their own now a bit. They've beaten both of them, and that's absolutely true. But Kyle, again, when you're looking at the gauntlet, and I keep going back to this because this is season defining, Kyle. These next 6 weeks, to include last week, is going to make or break the season. You can hash it out any way you want, but so everything is going to go right back to those stretch of 6 games, and we can't. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you mentioned you can't go 0-4 or 0-6 or not. Can't go 2-4. But what if they do, Kyle? And we're sitting here at the end of this. I don't know what they would be. They'd be 10-5, whatever. Where would you be at that point, or what would you tell those fans? Would you tell them to just hang in there because we got the soft part of the schedule again before getting ready for the playoffs? What would you say for a fan base that has Super Bowl aspirations for this football team?
No, I mean, if you're giving me the scenario where they drop the majority of those games, then yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough. And I'm going to have to, there's not going to be any way for me to sit here and say, they're the best team I've ever seen or whatever. I think the scenario where I'm disappointed is if they go 2-4. I think through their whatever. I guess it's now 5 games, so 2-3, whatever. Or maybe I guess 1-3 because they just beat the Cowboys. They've started the stretch already with a win. I mean, we talked about the 6-game stretch. They just got a win out of it. So it's really going to come down to who the teams that they lose to are, right? Because you lose the 2 AFC games, okay, but you beat the Niners, you beat the Seahawks, and you beat the Cowboys again. And we're sitting in a really, really good position. So it's all going to depend on how it shakes out. I mean, I think it's going to be no secret who this team really is when we go through this stretch, I think.
All right, Kyle, listen, you had the Eagles winning 33-30 in overtime. I had the Eagles winning 31-28. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm going to give it to me, seeing how I was closest when you look at both of them. But, of course, we don't get points for that. We both win 7-2 now in the season. Both of us, Kyle, I don't think we've ever been we've been tied this deep yet so far in the years we've been doing this. Hassan Reddick was your MVP. Devontae Smith was my MVP. I think it's safe bet to say neither one of those really worked out to be the MVP. Kyle, I'm going to give you who I think the MVP in this game was, and maybe you agree with me. If you don't, please tell me who you think it was. I'm going to go with Brandon Graham. You know what? He had himself a day. He had himself a day. He had that altering play at the end that forced Dak Prescott out of bounds there. I really like seeing sort of a retro Brandon Graham kind of stepping up and being that leader and taking maybe kind of stopping the bleeding a little bit on defense. So I'm going to go with Brandon Graham as my MVP in this game.
I give you Brandon Graham. I like the idea of giving it to Brandon Graham. BG deserves to have an MVP of one of these games. He had a huge sack late in the game, and yes, he did usher Dak Prescott out of bounds to completely change the complexion of how that game ended. So yeah, I mean, Brandon Graham in the clutch as always, vintage Brandon Graham, I should say. So that's good stuff. I'll agree with your stamp of MVP Brandon Graham.
That's what I'm talking about. Kyle's coming on to my way of thinking. Let's see if he continues that as we break this down. Points per half, Kyle. Eagles scored 14 points and 14 points in the first and second half of Sunday's game. They are now up to 131 points in the first, 128 in the second, 15 points on average in the first, and 14 points on average in the second. I got to say this, they're more consistent this year than they were last year, and they've had to score more second half points per capita this year than they had to last year. How is your, and I know you don't take much of any stock in this, but is it pleasant for you to seeing how I bring it up every damn week about their lack of second half scoring, that they've been more on point with scoring in the second half, or is this just the game dictating it to them?
I mean, Matt, I'm waiting for this to click to you. The trend of every time you're talking points, we're having heart attacks and the game is ending on the final freaking drive. Like, you're taking this pleasant thing. This is not pleasant. I mean, this is not fun. The fact that we have to go back and forth and be in these gut wrenching games, and we have to put have to keep the foot on the gas in the second half. It's tough, man. It's a tough way to live. I would venture to say that the wins last year came a lot easier than the ones did this year. And I mean, if you're asking me as a fan, yeah, of course, you want the easier freaking win. So I'm just sort of waiting for this pattern to fall into place in your head where you're realizing that second half points means the game is closer.
I know. I've always realized that, but I'm a big fan of spreading the wealth, being consistent, Kyle. I don't like having to score 42 points in the first half because you know what? You're right. Maybe they don't have the offensive game plan heading in the second half because you got a 42-point lead or whatever. But, I witnessed with my own eyes the Buffalo Bills come back from a 31-3 deficit in the AFC wildcard game back in 91, 90, the hell it was. And I watched it in my basement, Kyle, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So I am a fan of consistent scoring based on that traumatic event. And I didn't have a dog in that fight. I don't care less about the Buffalo Bills, but Houston Oilers. But I saw that and what that can do to your organization, Bill Polian. So
how rare is that? How rare is a 31-3 comeback? Like, you're pointing at the most extreme example possible. Right. I think the real story to come out of what you're saying is how our defense has been playing and not allowing the other team to score a lot of points in the second halves of games. I mean, holding the Cowboys to 6. I think they held the Rams to very few points in the second half. The Commanders, I think, the last week. So the Eagles have been doing a pretty damn good job in the second half defensively.
I'm scarred, Kyle. What can I say? I've seen what it can happen. Everything looks funny on paper, but when you actually physically see it happen, you're like, oh, well, God, it could happen. I just don't want to be – I don't think I could handle that as an Eagle fan, watching something like that happen. I really don't. I don't think I can handle that.
Not. Yeah, of course. I mean, it would suck to watch your team get the worst comeback of all time on them. I disagree.
The Eagles did, as I said, no turnovers, 13 now in the season. Defense got to Prescott 5 times for 41 yards. They've now sacked the quarterback 30 times for 198 yards, about 3.3 sacks a game for 22 yards. Red zone efficiency, Kyle, another positive afternoon in the red zone, 3 for 3. on Sunday, 20 for 36 now in the season. That percentage is on the rise. It's up to 55.56. So that is a pleasant way to end the first half, Kyle. That was definitely, I think, in my mind, was one of the worst aspects of the Eagles in 2023 was their lack of finishing. It's like watching the Flyers in the power play, Kyle. They just couldn't get it done. And now it seems they've kind of rectified that over the past 3 weeks. Play calling is a little bit more creative down there in the red zone. What is your take on the Eagles' red zone efficiency now going forward into the second half? Are you surprised on the kind of the renaissance here over the last 3 weeks?
I guess I shouldn't say I'm surprised. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it is they're doing differently now than they were doing in weeks prior. But I mean, it's definitely really good to see. I mean, the two things that we sort of worried about, and I think we both pointed to going into this game, were the red zone efficiency, that was going to be one of the keys to the game, and the turnover differential, another thing that the Eagles kind of got down back toward their favor. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking at things that the team has ironed out and has adjusted with, the red zone you can definitely point to, and then the turnovers too. So that's two very, very encouraging signs.
Absolutely encouraging signs. And let's kind of close the book on the Dallas Cowboys. 28-23. Eagles get to win. Dallas week is gone. We have another one coming up. I want to get one last parting shot with you on the Dallas week phenomenon, or lack of Dallas week phenomenon. Kyle, I went on the air on Monday, and I don't know if you saw it. You probably didn't, but I blamed you for the lack of Dallas week intensity, or lack of what I'm used to intensity. Call me an old head all you want, Kyle, but there's no more bounty bowls. There's no more fake kneel downs. You know, I watched all that. I went through all that, and thank God for Buddy Ryan for taking Dallas week to a whole different, plane of existence. And now it's pathetic. It's wishy-washy, and I blame the millennial generation and the softer kumbaya crowd out there for kind of taking my beloved Dallas week and shoving it down the toilet, Kyle Quinn. I need a bounty bowl, Kyle. I need a fake kneel down. I need something to re-energize Dallas week, Kyle Quinn. Where do you stand on that? One last time.
I'm just sorry. You said that on Monday after the game that you just watched the Eagles and Cowboys play. Like, that was a classic Eagles and Cowboys game. It was physical. It was chippy. Did you not see Jason Kelce strangling another Cowboys player and screaming with that face? I mean, the players got hate for each other. I don't know if you saw, and I can't believe you blame me after what apparently Nick Sirianni did to fire the team up to play the Cowboys when he played a clip from the WIP midday show of a caller pulling somebody over because he was a police officer while ripping the Cowboys on WIP. Sirianni played that clip for the team to get them fired up.
That's pandering, Kyle. That's pandering. That's not firing the team up. In my opinion, that's pandering. That's taken.
Matt, I'll tell you what it is. He's showing the team what the game means to the city to pretty much completely obliterate your entire point. The game still means a ton to the city. Matt, let me just put you in the stadium because everyone was feeling this. When that last minute of the game, it would have been absolute torture to walk out of all you need to ask yourself is what it would be like for these next 2 weeks had we lost to the Dallas Cowboys if you feel like you would have a knot in your stomach and you were sick. Absolutely. And the Cowboys-Eagles thing still means the same to you than it always did. Just because whack job Buddy Ryan isn't out here commenting on Jimmy Johnson's hair and his own stuff like that. Yes, Matt. But of a head coach. For all the ripping you do of Howie Roseman, Buddy Ryan did none of it with the Eagles.
Well, hang on. You need to pay the respect to the man that brought back Eagles football to this town, Kyle. All right, come on. You gotta put it there, Kyle. It's there. He's responsible for bringing back the Eagles to a presentable
losing football. That's your brand, Matt.
Wow, Kyle. Now you got to open the history book, man. Before Buddy Ryan showed up, after Dick Vermeil kind of fizzled out, it was Drek. It was horrible here. Buddy Ryan got that edge about him again. About the Eagles.
How many playoff games they win with Buddy Ryan?
Yeah, none.
Yeah, thanks. Case closed.
Okay. How many Super Bowls we won with Nick Sirianni?
Matt, they went to the Super Bowl.
How many times did we win? With Sirianni.
Matt, Sirianni in 2 years has 2 more playoff wins than Buddy Ryan has in his entire tenure with the Eagles. Boom. Case closed.
Tomato, Kyle. It's to me. It's a different. It's the same thing.
Head coach. Get over it.
I disagree. Dallas week to me is dead. I need something to spur it back up. I need some sort of stupid shenanigan to get it going again. And yes, I do know I did see the thing about the cop clip and all that. And good. And you're right. That is something. But I need to see it more on the field, Kyle. I need to see some. I don't see the hatred between the Eagles and Cowboys. And Jason Kelsey, I think, said he was laughing, not yelling.
Yeah,
So
yeah, Matt, he was laughing maniacally in his face because the guy just trampled him on the play before. That wasn't like a laugh, like friendly laugh. He was doing like a primal insanity scream in his face to get in dude's head.
Was it a scream or a laugh, Kyle? I think he said it was a laugh.
Mimic it, and did you see him in the dude's face? I mean, you could pretty much tell for yourself what he was doing to this guy, Matt. It was not a friend.
I'm just saying what the man said. I'm not. He out of his own mouth. He said he was laughing.
Kicker's leg, like you got to get over it, dude. It's 2023. It's not the 90s anymore, man. You're losing football, and you're losing Eagles head coach is not coming back, buddy. This is the new era of Eagles football, and what we do.
Are you calling me buddy, or are you saying buddy? What are you doing there? Listen, I'm not telling you that Buddy Ryan was the greatest thing since sliced bread. He wasn't, but you gotta give him his due. He brought Eagle football back from the abyss. Kyle, he did.
But I don't understand why you want a losing era back. Like, for all this talk that you do about how winning's the only thing that matters, the era that you long for is a losing era of football.
Kyle, no, you're taking it out of context. Before Buddy Ryan showed up, it was horrible. Buddy Ryan laid down a foundation to start winning again, and then
make you laugh, Matt. All he did was make you laugh and be proud that you hated the Cowboys. He didn't win anything. That's all he did.
By the Rams playoff game, the second time they made the playoffs under Buddy. By that second Rams, it was the fog ball, and then it was the Rams playoff game. By then, yeah, I was out because come on, let's go, man. We got to get some playoff wins. And then when they lost to the Redskins the following year, it was time for him to go. And they bring Rich Kotite in, and we take a nosedive again. And then it wasn't until Andy shows up till it repairs itself. So come on, Kyle.
All right, well, so Matt, I find it funny that you say what Sirianni does is pandering, but all the stuff that Buddy Ryan said about the Cowboys to the Eagles fans, that's not pandering. It's just you have a Buddy Ryan bias, Matt.
No, I don't. The head coach and the players are doing it, not some WIP caller. And no disrespect to the great listeners of WIP, I'm not saying that. But if Nick Sirianni was involved in maybe doing something like that he fired his team up, that's one thing. But having some, I want to fire his team up.
For it. I mean, you just can't win, dude.
I know. You
gotta get real.
You just hit the head. We just can't win. Or is it I can't just win, or the Eagles can't just win? What did you say?
The Eagles can't. Nobody can win with you. You're impossible.
The Eagles can win, Kyle. They absolutely can win. And I'm waiting for it. I really am. But to me, Dallas week is dead. And I guarantee there's a lot of the 40-plus crowd out there that will agree with me.
Yeah, they're all dinosaurs, and no one cares what they get over
it. Dinosaur or not, Kyle, I want Dallas week to come back, but maybe on Sunday was a step in the right direction. Let's see how that thing works itself out, Kyle. But let's transition to something else, Kyle. Injuries. This is a huge topic that I wanted to kind of pick your brain about. Again, we mentioned the bye week could not have come at a better time for the Eagles. They're a little dinged up. But one player might be gone, or actually, we're still dealing with the Dallas Goedert injury, but we lost another bird. Wait, did Dallas Goedert get hurt Sunday, or was it the week before? That was this week he got hurt, right?
He got hurt Sunday, right in front of my section.
Man, I'm losing track of time. So let's talk about two players. I thought Dallas Goedert got hurt last week. Let's get with Dallas Goedert first. The impact of that injury, right in front of your section, you say, really?
Yeah, it was it was very close to me, yeah.
No, on TV, the hit, it looked like he got his arm caught up a little bit, but it didn't look all that, like it's something serious. But
stiff arm the dude. The only alternative that the guy has is getting his face planted in the dirt. He has to find a way to bring it down.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. But Kyle, what do you think the ramifications are on losing Dallas Goedert with a banged up Jalen Hurts and the lack of the trust, I guess, the Eagles have on their actual organic running game? What does that do to the Eagles' offense as a whole?
Well, we're going to find out. Obviously, I think he adds a playmaking element to when you can get him out there on screens, you can get him in space and stuff like that. He's a pain in the ass to take down. The weird thing is, and I'm not trying to dismiss Dallas Goedert's impact, but if you look at the game, because Goedert got injured last year against the Commanders, I believe it was, If you look
Yep.
at the stretch of games following his injury, I mean, they had a little bit of a lull offensively against the Colts, but the offense really took off the most that it did over
Yeah.
that stretch. Dallas Goedert was injured. I believe it was the Titans game, the Packers game, the Giants game, and they just killed everybody. And so that's not to minimize the impact that Dallas Goedert has, but I think this offense has so many different ways that they can beat you that if Jalen Hurts is going and he's able to be a threat in the run game, then I think they'll be able to survive the Goddard injury.
Now, a lot of Eagle fans have really had a lot of concerns, or yeah, I guess concerns with the offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, if not, maybe kind of still trying to figure himself out in Week 10. Now you add a wrinkle to the figuring out stage of trying to run an offense effectively without your number one tight end and perhaps the one of the top five best tight ends in the game of football, regardless of how the Eagles are using him properly or not. Is there any concern with you that Brian Johnson is going to not be overwhelmed by this, and that he will come up with a way to scheme an offense, around the loss of Dallas Goedert?
Well, I mean, Dallas Goedert was pretty much invisible in the offense until about week 5 anyway, so
That's a
that's
good
not
point.
going to be territory for Brian Johnson. No, it's just going to be a matter of how Jalen Hurts operates the offense without him. I mean, he's going to have to get the ball to AJ and Devontae Moore, obviously, and other guys are going to have to step up and contribute more on the rest of the offense than it is on Brian Johnson.
I think that the Eagles' lack of Dallas Goedert in the first 5 weeks, and you're absolutely right. There was a lack there, but I think that was more on the obviously Eagles their game plan. Other teams were still scheming for the potential use of Dallas Goedert. Now you take that off the table. Now you give those defensive coordinators that extra ammunition. I'm concerned that Brian Johnson's not going to be able to. You mentioned the outside threats of Devontae and AJ. Kyle, I think that check's coming due. I think AJ Brown's going to start garnering the attention that he deserves, and it might become a little bit more, harder to get the ball to him. Then Devontae Smith obviously will hopefully have to stand up, and he could definitely do that. He had a great game on Sunday, but I think the lack of Dallas Goedert and the lack of the commitment of the run game and the dinged up Jalen Hurts will definitely affect this Eagle offense going forward. If Brian Johnson doesn't do some changes here on the fly, and he's got 10 days to figure it out, so there's really no excuse, in my opinion, for him to not figure it out, Kyle.
Yeah, I just don't think Dallas Goedert's going to make or break the Eagles' offense. I mean, AJ Brown has been an absolute monster this year, and to your point about them giving extra help, they have been. AJ is just absolutely freaking dominating everybody and been completely unstoppable.
Yeah.
They have a lot of weapons on this team, and even without Dallas Goedert, so I think the other guys will be able to step up just fine. If they want to really give extra help to AJ Brown, then I mean that's going to be their funeral because Devontae Smith is a very, very capable, fantastic wide receiver. So I'm not overly worried about the Goddard injury. I think it's going to be up to the rest of the playmakers on the team to make plays, and that's pretty much all they've been doing all season long.
I think time will tell, but I'm concerned. The other major injury coming out of this game is a player that just can't seem to figure it out, can't seem to stay on the field. When he is on the field, he's just not really getting it fast enough. And that's Nakobe Dean, a Liz Frank injury, a sprain, they're calling it. And that's one of those foot injuries that could linger a while. He's listed on the IR, which is a 4-week thing. Reports maybe he might be gone for the season, determining what they can or cannot figure out about this injury going forward. Kyle Quinn, Nakobe Dean, is it safe to say he's a bust?
I mean, no, it's his second season in the league. I don't know if you can go bust, especially because he was a third-round draft pick. Third-round draft picks and bust don't really necessarily attach themselves to each other. But I guess I can only say this in the nicest way possible about injury. I don't really care. I mean, Nakobe Dean's pretty much been a non-factor out there. In fact, I think the best linebacker play that this Eagles team has gotten has been when he was not on the field for those few weeks, and Zach Cunningham and Morrow were having really good days. So I'm sure he's a really great guy. I'm not sure what the future holds for Nakobe Dean, but this is not anywhere near an injury where I'm like, oh man, that stinks. His defense is going to really suffer for it. He's kind of just a non-factor out there.
Kyle, I'm having a hard time processing what you just said because I remember a draft recap show about 2 seasons ago, and I was pretty critical of Howie Roseman being the smartest GM in the room for taking the Kobe Dean in the 3rd round, and he outsmarted everybody, and I was like, what, huh? The Kobe Dean fell to the 3rd round. He was a 1st round projected talent, and there was a few issues with him, and injuries was one of them. But I get told to sit down because I'm a Howie hater, and now I'm hearing it's a non-factor. It's no big deal. Come on, Kyle. What is it, man? I mean,
Look,
Howie Roseman screwed up the draft pick. This guy is a non-factor because he's not a good player, and he shouldn't have been selected by the Eagles in that third round.
it's a third-round draft pick. Matt,
Absolutely, third-round draft pick.
Now, and the only reason you didn't like the draft pick is because you're a Howie Roseman hater. Anybody with eyes said that if you have Nakobe Dean, a guy who before the draft was picked as first-round talent by a lot of people, falls to the third round. The third round is where you take flyers on people. If they pick Nakobe Dean in the first round, Matt, then you can dance on Howie Roseman's grave about it being a bad pick. It's a third-round freaking pick, dude. You got to get over yourself and your ridiculous, buddy.
I got to get over myself. You guys are doing victory laps around the room saying how Howie outsmarted the entire NFL. I mean, which is it?
Man, you're being completely ridiculous, dude. It's literally a third round.
I'm being ridiculous. I have an opportunity to finally gloat about
celebrating the fact that people don't think that Kobe Dean is good just because you want Howie Roseman to fail so badly that you'll nitpick any third round pick that he made. Matt, it's a third round pick, dude. Stop.
Yeah, absolutely. A third round pick in that time that was required to help rebuild this team. Kyle, a third round pick is prime capital in the NFL draft. I don't care what to say.
8-1.
Okay, 8-1. What does that trophy look like, Kyle Quinn? What does it look like?
God, Matt, it looks like the one that we won with Howie Roseman in 2017. Do we have to go back to this again?
Really? There's an 8-1 trophy. Looks like the Lombardi Trophy. All right. I disagree, Kyle. I think Howie Roseman once again screwed up by picking the wrong player. And now we're feeling that. Now we have
screwed what up?
Picking the Kobe Dean in the third round. All right. He should have been drafted. He was not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're a disaster.
You're my guest. I don't want to yell.
Enough.
He screwed it up, Kyle. I'm not moving on because this is a point that I must make. Kobe Dean is ineffective when he's on the field, and now he can't stay on the field.
That's enough.
Well, you know, is it about we can't talk about Nakobe Dean? We can't talk about Howie Roseman's shortcomings now? We got to gloss over it. We just got to let it go?
Oh, Matt, we can talk about his shortcomings. I've been very critical about what he did at the trade deadline this year. I think that's a mistake. Drafting a guy in the third round who had a high grade is not a freaking mistake. It's a flyer that any general manager freaking takes, dude. Shut up.
What was Jalen Reagor? Was that a flyer too?
If that's a bad pick, Matt, you need to learn the difference between what a bad pick is and
they're all bad picks.
No,
regardless if you think it's a flyer or not.
Matt, they're not all bad picks. You're being completely absurd now. Completely.
I can bring up the draft tracker if you like, but I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
right
now. Good, Matt. Because it's making you look completely freaking asinine. The more and more you bring it.
It is not, Kyle. It's adding to my narrative, and that's all. I'll leave it at that. You're right. This is not a Howie show, and it's never going to be one. It's your show, and we're going to do your thing.
Of your own Howie hatred, a caricature.
I'm not a caricature of Howie hatred. I'm just a man who wants to point out the facts, not the point, but the facts that Kobe Dean was given an opportunity, and it shouldn't have been the opportunity because he was the wrong player. He should have been drafted where he was. All right, I'm leaving it at that, Kyle. You have to take your medicine, just like I got to take it. You got to take it too.
I'm not talking about third round pick anymore. Move on.
Okay, no more. But yeah, let's not talk about Howie. Let's not be critical of Howie. We can't do that here. All right, Kyle Quinn. So getting back to the secondary. All right, we got Roby, who's still dealing with injury, but he might be trending hopefully in the right direction to come back after the bye week. We're not going to get too much into the Kansas City Chiefs here. We'll wait for that till next week. But Kyle, looking at overview, KC is on a bye week as well this week. Andy Reid is 27-4 coming out of the bye, has never lost to the Eagles in his entire career. It's in Kansas City, Super Bowl rematch and all that. It's a Monday night game too, Kyle. So not only do we have to wait for the repertory 7 days, of the whole football week, we got to wait an extra day to play next Monday. Right now, what is your initial feelings about the Eagles-Chiefs game next Monday night?
It's going to be another really, really tough game against a really, really good team. And I think anybody who expects us to go down to Kansas City and look really good while beating the Chiefs is just expecting too much of this team, as people have been all season long. And you with your high expectations about every little thing that the Eagles do and that everybody on the Eagles does, Matt, you got to get over it because the Eagles are going to be fine and they're going to go down there and beat Kansas City. So you can lock that one in.
No, we're not locking nothing in, Kyle. We got to do this again next week. We got to lock it in next week. I need show material for next week. I just wanted to get your overall assessment. You made a good point earlier by saying this is not your dad's Kansas City Chiefs, and it's very telling. And I don't know if it's the wide receiver talent, or is it Travis Kelce? Is he more banged up than he's talking about? Or is Pat Mahomes losing the magic, or is Andy Reid losing his magic? Because we've seen all that, how that plays out and everything. This, to me, obviously, when you're looking at this, because a lot of people have the Eagles 1 and 2 with the Chiefs in the power rankings at the midway point and all that. It's not the Super Bowl. It's not last year. It's a new season, a new journey and whatnot. But obviously, going into Kansas City and getting a win, no matter how they do it, we go a long way in assuaging at least my trepidations about this football team. But what's that?
I said, I'm sure it would, Matt.
It would. I'm not going to nitpick them if they win this game. I don't care how they do it, honestly. This is a tough one, man. This is a real tough one.
We'll say.
Jeez, man. Come back, Kyle. Let's go. Snap out of it, man. It's going to be okay. I can be critical of them. It's my right.
I get it. Some of it's just a little bit ridiculous.
It is not a little bit ridiculous. I guarantee there's a group of fans out there that agree with me, and it doesn't matter. All I need is one person on my side, and I have that one person. My other personality.
I think a lot of people out there tell you that it's just a little bit ridiculous. A little bit.
So, but it's my job to bring them back to the light, Kyle Quinn. With all that being said, Kyle, that's going to wrap us up. No football this weekend, Kyle. What's on tap for you? What are you working? Again, this is Thursday night. I'm being transparent. Everybody's going to see this on Saturday, but what's Kyle Quinn got working for the weekend? Is it a weekend off, right?
Yeah, I mean a weekend off from the Eagles, but I'm just going to enjoy some stress football all day. I think the night games or all the primetime games this week are kind of brutal, but I'm a sucker for football and I'm going to watch them all anyway. I think the 1 o'clock slate's pretty good. Jaguars Niners is going to be a fun game. Maybe the Ravens Browns, we'll see. But I look forward to bye weeks. I mean, it's always I miss the birds, but I'll be able to enjoy some NFL Red Zone and just watching some stress-free football.
Kyle, you just reminded me of something that I saw on the schedule, and I guess I really wasn't paying attention to it when it first came out. But is there a football game, an NFL game, on Friday afternoon, the day after Thanksgiving? Did I see
Black
that right?
Friday, I think there is. Yeah, I think there's now Black Friday games. I'm not sure who it is though, but I think that's.
So, what's your feelings on that? Is that something you're okay with? I mean, Black Friday is a day that I'm moving around all day long. I'm not going to be home watching games.
Dude, whatever, man. You want to give me more football every day of the week? I'm all for it, man. I'm a football fiend. I don't care if the players don't like it. This is about me. I'm the customer. So you give me more football, I'm good with it.
And I'm the problem. All right, Kyle. Before I let you go, where can the good folks out there find you?
Yeah, catch me on Twitter at Kyle_Quinn WIP. And that, of course, is the radio station you can find me on Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I will be on there all week, every day, 5 days a week. So check me out, 94 WIP.
All right, brother. We'll catch you next week on another edition of the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. Take care, brother.
All right, man. Take it easy, man. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Kyle Quinn with me here as we wrap up another fun-filled episode. Delusional Kyle Quinn as we wrap up another fun-filled episode. Just going to make 2 points and we're moving on. Buddy Ryan was not in it. Let me kind of like finish the Buddy Ryan thing. I got what Buddy Ryan was. He ended up being not a great coach. Really ended up being not a great coach when he went off down to Houston and then Arizona and all that. I understand that. But what the state of football was in the city of Philadelphia before Buddy Ryan came here was horrible. And what Buddy Ryan was, he instilled pride back in this team that really has been built on from him. And then as we moved up through the years to where we are at this point right now. So let's get it in the context. Did I think Buddy Ryan was a great head coach? No. But do I think Buddy Ryan was the savior of Eagles football? Absolutely. And I will go to my deathbed thinking that as well, because at least in my generation, he was. Without Buddy Ryan, who knows where we are right now, honestly, in the long run. And as far as Nakobe Dean, it was a bad draft pick. Nakobe Dean is a bust. I'm going to go over my draft tracker and change this color right now to bust color. He's a bust. And you're not going to tell me that a third-round pick is not vital to rebuilding a team. Don't forget, this was the 2022 draft, not last year's draft. This was a team coming off of a wild card loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There wasn't all this Super Bowl fever heading into last season or into that draft that there was heading into this draft. So every draft pick is vital. 1 through 7. I don't care where you are. Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, for God's sakes. Don't give me the hooey that a third-round draft pick is not vital to the importance of success of a football team. I ain't buying it, man. And Nakobe Dean was a bad pick, and fire Howie. That's what I'm going to say about that. So it was a great, another great episode, bro. I'd like to thank Kyle for joining us. As before I turn off for the night, I guess. This is the schedule here on the Edge of Philly Sports. Today is Saturday. Don't forget, a little bit later on tonight, you're going to get some Clear the Ice Flyers Kings as the Flyers wrap up that West Coast trip before heading to North Carolina and then heading home next Saturday. So make sure you're checked out with the Clear the Ice group and everything else we have to offer here on the Edge of Philly Sports. And then with the fact that the Eagles have a bye week, head on down to Dolan's on 24 East Sellers Ave, Ridley Park for Quizzo music, great times, memorabilia giveaway. You never know who might walk through the front door. And tell PJ and the gang we said, hey, Sherry's Ticket Town, great ticket prices, no hidden fees, sports, concert, theater, www.sherrystickets.com, family owned and operated since 1946. Check out, save additional 10% when you enter the promo code EOP10. And if you have some workman's compensation, motor vehicle, accident, personal injury, or criminal law questions or concerns, Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300 is the man you got to call. He will do. He'll take care of you the right way. And if you want to travel like the pros, look no further than Philly Sports Trips at phillysportstrips.com for all your Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Phillies, Union travel needs. Travel like the pros. Travel with Philly Sports Trips. And head over there, check their stuff out. And that, folks, is going to wrap me up here on the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. I want to thank Kyle and all of our sponsors for making this possible. Until we talk again on Monday on the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program, have a great rest of your weekend and go Birds.